The theme for the next session is Limited Conflicts. Explore the dynamic world of limited conflicts through the eyes of our esteemed panelists, each of whom has authored books that provide unparalleled insights into military engagements. Lieutenant General Ramesh Kulkarni, retired, author of Siachen 1987, takes us deep into the treacherous terrains of Siachen and the challenges faced by soldiers in this high-altitude conflict. Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Nair, author of Resurrecting the IPKF Legacy, offers a comprehensive view of India's involvement in Sri Lanka during Operation Pavan. Lieutenant General Mohinder Puri, the author of Kargil, Turning the Tide, shares his experiences and insights from one of the most significant limited conflicts in recent history. Our moderator, Major General Dr. Mandip Singh, will facilitate a lively discussion that delves into the strategic, tactical, and human dimensions of limited conflicts. Join us for a session that promises to deepen your understanding of these complex and often overlooked aspects of military strategy and history. I request all our panelists to come up on the stage, please. Lieutenant General Ramesh Kulkarni, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, retired. Lieutenant Colonel B.R. Nair, retired. Lieutenant General Mohinder Puri, PVSM, UYSM, retired. I request our moderator, Major General Mandip Singh, SM, VSM, retired, to also come up on the stage, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The session today is on limited wars. With me is an extremely distinguished panel of three veterans who have written books on three of the wars that the Indian Army has fought or continues to, at least in Siachen. It's my proud privilege to moderate this session. And before I introduce the panel, a little word about limited wars. As I was reading through, I think Bernard Brody has possibly put the context absolutely correct about what are limited wars. So limited wars are those which are limited in aims and objectives, limited in spaces and or in time duration, and limited in levels of usage of weaponry, whether it is use of nuclear weapons, non-nuclear weapons, and what have you. So these are the three limitations under which limited wars are fought. And none the other than I saw a very nice piece by General G.D. Bakshi, where he talked and divided this post-World War II era into two distinct parts, the first nuclear age and the second nuclear age. The first nuclear age being from 1945 till our nuclear tests, where large-scale conflicts got limited to limited wars, like, for example, Korea, or for interventions by the US in, say, Central America. And then after that, post our nuclear tests, we have the second nuclear age, where wars got limited under a nuclear overhang. Because then you had India, Pakistan, Israel, maybe North Korea, question mark, as also nuclear powers. So when we now see the scenario today, and when we look at what these three distinguished gentlemen are going to talk about, you would realize the change that's happened in the method of warfare. I have the privilege of talking about these three books. This is the one on Kargil by General Mohinder Puri. This one on Resurrecting the IPKF by Colonels Nair and Colonel Atul Kochar. And the third one is Siachen 1987 by General Ramesh Kulkarni. Quick introduction of the speakers before I take them on. Let's take the first one. Resurrecting the IPKF Legacy, 408 pages, 26 chapters, written by Colonels Arun Kochar and Colonel Nair. This is their second book on the IPKF. Colonel Nair was a gunner, commissioned in 1974 into a light regiment, shifted over to the Int Corps, was posted all over in the Int Corps, but he was there inside during the IPKF operations. And what this book is all about is what I'm going to ask you, sir, to tell us. He left the army, superannuated in 2004, and these books, two of them are worth reading. They are very nice personal experiences of people who were there. He calls it a forgotten war. I suppose you'll talk about it, sir. General Ramesh Kulkarni was 8th JSW, 17th Regular Course, commissioned into the 2nd Battalion, the Garhwal Rifles, on 3rd June 1956. He commanded 9 Garhwal, 56th Brigade in Nagaland, and was MGGS Northern Command before he went to take over 28th Division from none the other than General Ram Gaur, who's sitting over here. And so we have a very privileged 1st and 2nd GOC of 28th Div. Interestingly, after his command of his brigades and his tenures in the field, he was quite sure that he's going to go to a peace area. Till the unit Panditji said that you are destined to command in field. And his posting was changed and cancelled. It already, someone else was to go there, it was changed and cancelled, and he landed up to command 28 Div. And then we have General Mohinder Puri. Most of us have heard about him. He's written, he was the GOC in 8 Div during the Kargil operations. Commissioned into the 5th Battalion, 3rd Gurkha Rifles in 1966. Commanders Battalion Mizoram, a brigade in the Akhnur sector before he took over Forever in Operations Division in Kargil sector. It used to be called Forever in Operations, but I think now they've got a settled AOR, and so they are now set, perhaps after you they've got set there. He retired as the Deputy Chief of the Army Staff and also was the MS for a short stint. Right, so I'm going to start by handing over the mic one by one to each of you to just tell us in 5 minutes each as to what prompted you to write your books. Interestingly, Colonel Nair, your book came out in 2023, although IPKF was in 1987. And General Puri, the war was in 1999, but you wrote it in 2016. And General Kulkarni, GOC, 1987, but he wrote it in 2023. So what prompted you, gentlemen, to write these books? And I'll have it from you, sir, from your side.
Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And I really want to thank USI also for affording me this opportunity to bring out something on which I have been deeply involved for a period of about 3 years now, and that is the Indian Peacekeeping Force operations in Sri Lanka. That was between July 1987 to March 1990, almost 32 months. And it was the first joint operation. We are all talking of jointness today. But we already had an experience of fighting or conducting operations jointly much earlier. We had it in 1971 ops during Bangladesh, and again we had it in 1987 in Sri Lanka. But what I felt was that when I went there to as an intelligence corps officer, I was kind of amazed as to what is this way we are going about fighting a war. Is this the way a wars are fought? We started with, you can say, practically zero. And all these thoughts kept going around in my head till 1919, when the National War Memorial was inaugurated in Delhi. Once the National War Memorial came up, I saw that only government or the at a national level, two operations are being talked about. That is the Kargil operations or the Vijay Divas, which commemorates the 1971 operations. Where are JSOs, officers, Jawans who fought in 1962, who fought in 1948, who fought in 1965, who operated in Sri Lanka, who operated in counterinsurgency operations? They sacrificed their lives. Were they in vain? Were their sacrifices any less than what was we are commemorating in Kargil or in Bangladesh? We are a political army. We have no politics. We follow the government's directions, the lawful instructions that are given to us. We stand to protect our constitution. We take orders in the name of the president. We have got nothing else to do with political parties. So I felt, or rather me and my companion, Colonel Atul Kochar, we used to meet very often. We live very close to each other in Noida. So we kept discussing this thing and we said, no, we have to do something about this. We should bring it up. People have forgotten about it and we should fight for the rights of our men who sacrificed themselves in various operations. That is how this idea germinated. Then we homed on to IPKF because both of us had served there and we knew what it was all about. And while we were doing the research, we found that yes, the senior lot had written a lot of books. The force commander, the army commander, some of the brigade commanders, one or two of the general officer commanding, they have all written their books about how or what they did was right and why everybody else was wrong, all of that. But the guy who actually conducted who did the operation, who bled on the battlefield, either he sacrificed himself or he suffered grievous injury in leading to loss of limbs, etc. Their stories have just gone. Nobody is talking about them. So we decided that we will try and approach howsoever many we can contact on our person. We started Postmates and that kind of net. Later on, gradually we expanded. People came to know about it and people started volunteering. Some of them elected to write their own accounts in their own hand. Some said, sir, we can't write, but we'll tell you what it is. So we conducted a number of interviews, took down their stories, and we penned it, put it down. And that is how we homed on to this methodology in writing, which is called anthologies. So both our books are anthologies. They combine about almost 40 accounts by young officers who were captains, majors, lieutenants, an odd JCO, an odd NCO, the wife of a captain who was martyred there. All of them wrote and their accounts are there in these books. Each account is preceded by a kind of a synopsis given by us, which gives you the context of what has been discussed in the story and the lessons that we need to draw from the others. That is how we came out, and the first book's response was so good. People in Tamil Nadu wanted it to be translated. Our publishers approached us, sir, we want to translate this in Tamil because people are interested. They want to know if they can read it in Tamil. So we felt that out of the bank of stories that we had collected, we could go in for another book also. So that is how the second book we published in January this year. Simultaneously, we are pushing the Army headquarters and on the powers that be to commemorate this operation in the manner it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. General Puri, sir, may I request you, sir? What prompted you to write this truth be told?
Yeah, I think it's, thank you. Thank the USI for giving me this opportunity and inviting me to speak to you today. What really prompted me is very difficult to, at this stage, analyze. Well, I was in service till 06, so obviously I was constrained by the rules and regulations of not bringing out whatever I felt was necessary. Then after I retired, I was working a bit and didn't have really the time to devote in writing a book which I thought should bring out a lot of lessons which we learnt, and why the Kargil operation took place, where were the fault lines, and for the future, how can we rectify whatever mistakes have been made. So this was and then of course, there were a lot of pressures from my friends, from peers, from colleagues, from the family, particularly my wife and daughter. Why don't you write? Everyone's writing, tum bhi lekho. So, that sort of a thing. And General Bummy had come up with a beautiful book on Kargil. So, I thought that I also must give my bit and acknowledge the bravery and the sacrifices made by these young officers and men in ensuring the territorial integrity of the country. I think that was a remarkable feat by these young officers who led from the front. And as the discussion goes by, I hope this point comes in. I think it's an outstanding leadership by an outstanding arm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. What about you, sir? General Kulkarni, sir?
I'm talking about the sector about which there is very little knowledge outside the society, even in the services, unless people have had the tenure and have been there. They know what is the importance of Siachen. I think at this stage, could I just show the map why this sector and what is the importance of it? Just a minute or so, or take it either.
You have the slides loaded. Go on, they'll get it, sir. They will just put it on, sir. You got it?
Just look at this map. What I'm referring to is this area, which is a wedge between Pak-occupied Kashmir and China. There is an area which is ceded by Pakistan to China. That apart, this place is something only what the mountaineers went, Siachen Glacier. It's also called the third pole. Why? Because outside the two polar regions, this is the most glaciated area. It has 22 glaciers, and that, we can imagine the glacier region at practically something like a pole, our North Pole or South Pole, but still much worse. I'll just show you that the terrain of this region. Next. Next. Okay. Now, this is the battlefield. 12 months, throughout the year, snow covered. Night temperatures in summer months will be minus 10 to 20. In winter months, it will go to minus 40 to minus 60. Each unit has to stay there about 6 months. What made the soldier survive, acquire mountaineering skills, and function as a most effective soldier. Now, there is one more slide at the end. Now, in such areas, there is no experience by any army in the world. I just wanted to mention that to you. Okay. Now, also, mind you, I don't think anybody, even in the armed forces, is aware that in '87, there was the biggest threat from Pakistan, biggest threat after 1971 war, which could have altered the boundaries of the nation. Nobody is aware of that. So it is a forgotten period, forgotten region, and not wanting to be made public. This is also the region where no media ever came during our operations, or we were permitted to interact with the media. So media is media was kept away. Reasons I won't go into now, unless something comes up subsequently. This is the uh, period about the same time when the Sri Lanka operations were going on. So the whole country, whole media whole country was talking about Sri Lanka operations. And this was not even mentioned. Even the army headquarters did not take any interest. They said, it's a local action, forget it. But whatever the actions took place, if Indian Army would have lost those positions, that is my division, the entire Ladakh was at stake and would have been taken over the Pakistani. Nobody is aware of it. Nobody wants to know it also. And it was so intense a period from the month of May to September 87. The stakes were very high. That is the time when General Musharraf, with Special Service Group, 2 battalions and a Northern Light Infantry Battalion, wanted to take over the Siachen Glacier. And it was, if he would have been successful, I think that would have been the end of that whole Ladakh's security. And having lost, I must say, I apologize to General Mohinder. He launched the Kargil operations because he had lost the face in the glacier at that time. But more about that. But why I wanted to write, there is no record anywhere. The sacrifices, the grit, determination, and courage displayed by those people, leadership qualities displayed at a right from NCOs, GSOs, young officer, company commander, aviation pilots, phenomenal. I mean, something which people ought to know it also, I thought. My own division, 28 Div, they wrote to me later on, sir, can you send if you, from your memory, what all happened in during 87, 88? I was shocked because from the glacier responsibility, they had gone to Kupwara from where they were raised. And they had no account, absolutely. It is just like, I don't blame them. Like 8 Mountain Div he commanded, initially was known as the Nagaland Division. Now they've gone back to come to the western sector. They won't have any knowledge, connection, or links, or records to be perused about Nagaland days, very rightly. But I thought, this is very unfair. And Army headquarters had put an embargo that the commanders like me or my brigade commander will not communicate with any of the person in media. Not only during the period of command there. Subsequently, when I retired and came to Pune, I asked them, so-and-so is asking me to give a talk about Siachen. He said, no, sir, be careful what you say. What do you mean, be careful? Sir, you know it. You are aware of the situation. So that is the type of restrictions which prevailed. So I was reluctant to write, number one. When the division also didn't have, I was aghast. And I thought, at a certain point of time, when I met the Subdar Major of the 8 Jack Ally, who were in Delhi, and I had met the Subdar Major, the commanding officer, in one of the Gadwali's function. He went and told the Subdar Major, General Kulkarni Sahib is here. He insisted that he must come and call on me and meet me. I realized he was the last man who had ever fought a battle under me that time. He had got a Veer Chakra at that time. With all these things, which army has got the experience of fighting such areas? Battlefields are 18,000 to 22,000. Unheard of. There is no army which has got this experience. There is nobody's experience we can fall back on. Weather conditions, severe weather conditions, lack of oxygen, problems of survival. I think all these things I felt it must be recorded and brought to notice to everybody, and that's how I decided to write.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we had the panel had decided that this session would be more of a Q&A, and so we are going to be doing more of talking on questions and answers and try and bring out what each book has for us in terms of lessons, in terms of objectives. And that will come out, I'm sure, as we go along. So let me put the first question to the entire panel, because a lot of things run common through all the three. The first is, so when you encapsulate both of Pavan, of Vijay, of Dekdut under the rubric of a limited war, do you think that militaries that prepare to fight and win are actually restricted or tied down by political expediencies, something that they've never prepared for? What is, did you feel that there was a political compulsion or a limitation in each of these operations?
When we examined this operation, we felt then itself that this operation, or any military operation for that matter, has a political component to it. After all, the very famous saying that war is too serious a business to be left to generals. It is a war is decided collectively. But what we found was that the armed forces, who are actually the cutting edge, who are actually going to go and do the job, they are nowhere in the decision loop. Somebody else takes the decision, the politicians, the bureaucracy, and we are just given an instruction, go and do this. And we try to do it to the best of our ability with all the handicaps available, which we face. Like in terms of Pavan, can you believe it? Troops reached the operational area without the chal wale purze, we call it. In a rifle, there are certain parts which move to fire a bullet. And why was it done? Because 84 we had that unfortunate experience in the which is called Blue Star, where we had to take out terrorists from the Sikh holy of holy places, and therefore, as a kind of a precaution, it was the army had internally, in all the Sikh units, they had created this policy of keeping these chal wale purze separately in boxes packed in the koth. Overnight, when the units were moved into Sri Lanka, they came in different aircraft, the continuous, like a taxi, like you see cabs in front of airports, that is the way the aircraft were flying in. So the same unit came in 5, 6, 7 different aircraft. People who landed there, the GPT boxes containing the parts were in some other aircraft, they didn't know. Confusion galore. And that was not the way wars are prosecuted.
In fact, you've written in your book that, the accord was signed in 1987 and it's supposed to be an Indian peacekeeping contingent, and 4 months down the line,
we became an enforcer.
We became a direct party to, yes. So, talking about the political situation
Correct,
at that time.
Correct, sir.
Jan Puri, sir, did you feel that the Kargil war was restrictive in terms of a political objective, or were you constrained by some political expediencies? Could it have achieved much more?
See, the declaration of war is a political decision. It has to be a political decision. The army can't take or the armed forces can't take a unilateral decision. So the decision to go to war was definitely by the government of the day. Now, how much of restriction did they impose on us? Frankly speaking, at the operational level, there were no restrictions, except the terms of reference were very clearly laid down that you will not cross the line of control. That was the start point of the operation, that come what may, the line of control will not be crossed. And this did affect the conduct of the operations at the tactical level. I'll tell you, as far as the army is concerned, if this term of reference had not been there, perhaps we could have ended the war at a quicker time and space. We would have got a larger chunk of the Pakistan army into our bag, which we couldn't. And perhaps we would have reduced a lot of casualties. But these are again decisions which are taken in the overall national interest. So in retrospect, and if I look at it today, perhaps it was a right decision which the government took at that stage. With all the compulsions which were there, we did not want to enlarge the scope of the battle. We wanted to restrain it to the areas east of Zujila. And therefore, I think in hindsight, you can say that it was a decision which was taken in the right, with the right intentions. Now, as far as the Air Force is concerned, it had larger ramifications. The grain of the country is north to south, and any attack which had to be sort of done by the air involved a south to north sort of a flying path, a flight path, which would have, crossed the line of control. So the Air Force was constrained to operate on a west to east or east to west direction, where the targets could not initially be effectively engaged because of the type of ordnance which they had, but as time passed by, the technology improved, and the wherewithal came their way, so things were better. But compulsions were there as far. And the second aspect which, of course, tied our hands was the declaration of a ceasefire at a time when we were, we had the better of the Pakistanis. And again, it could have, we gave an honorable retreat to the Pakistanis, which could have been averted. That's the second, political sort of a direction which was given. But I suppose it's given in the larger interest of the country and not just specifically to an area of operation.
Thank you, sir. Sir, how about you, sir? Do you think that, especially after you've written about Op Vajra Shakti and how 2 battalions were actually defeated thoroughly, it was that brigade was commanded by then Brigadier Musharraf. At that time, do you think you could have actually rolled down the ridgeline, the glacier, and maybe taken advantage of the situation? Or was there, you feel, a political compulsion not to continue further than what was achieved in Op Vajra Shakti?
I think the setting must be understood. This time, what he says, Op Vajra Shakti is when battalion after battalion was to be committed to capture Bilafonda Pass. That's it. And Musharraf was directing these operations. He was specially selected by the President of Pakistan and the Chief of Army Staff to command this brigade to regain Siachen, which we had occupied in '84. We had no idea this. I came to know only after reading the Kargil report. It indicated why Musharraf went to Kargil, and that's when we came to know that he was the commander opposite me. Problem is, here there was an undeclared war continuing since '84. It is not something, a war to be commenced or launched or approved by any authority. Once we occupied Siachen Glacier and we were on the Saltoro, there was an undeclared war continuing. So when I went and took over the division during that period about which I am writing, I think the first shock was given by General Ram Godse in handing taking over. As soon as you take over, you got to capture the swords of force. We had to refer to nobody. The due commander was left to himself to take a decision and implement it operationally. Politically, the only time the politicians had got involved was in '84, giving permission to go and occupy Siachen Glacier. Apart from that, there was no interference. In fact, there was no interest for the politician because they thought, what is this? A small area of no consequence, not realizing the importance and strategic impact of holding or giving up this area. So politically, I had no issues. In fact, I did have the defense minister and the RRM come and visit me after the war. RM sent me a personal congratulatory message to me and the troops. RRM came and gave out of the way support to me. I had no problem. I had no problems with any of the politicians.
Thank you, sir. Let's talk a little bit about one common thread which is very evident in all the three books, and that's about junior leadership. All of you have commented very well about the strong junior leadership, the grit, the determination of the soldiers, of the all rank and file. What would you like to specifically highlight insofar as junior leadership is concerned? We'll start from this end, Jan Kulkarni sir. You have glowingly talked about some of the tactical battles, particularly junior leaders of 8 Jaklai and also I think Gurkha battalion, 3-4 GRs.
You know, leadership has many facets. One is as a subunit or a tactical, absolutely small group level. Then is slightly supervisory level, say company commander, leading troops for a capture of an objective. He has to be able to motivate the lot, keep the pressure on, and ensure success. And the next level of leadership, I will put it, is a commander who is making a plan, preparing the team, and achieving the success or successfully the mission. Now, as far as I'll take it, the first one you have mentioned about the junior level. A second lieutenant recently commissioned from the academy, posted to J. Jakalai. He was selected to go and carry out a reconnaissance of a feature. I think you would like to see the feature on which he was asked to go. Next slide, please.
Can you just show this slide, please? You're talking about Op Rajiv, sir? Or is it the Bana post?
Bana post, yes. I want to show that
Yeah.
what it is and where this youngster scaled. Next. Next. Yeah. This was the feature. Pakistanis had come and occupied. And I was duty bound to make certain it is evicted because Pakistan is having established an artillery OP and a heavy machine gun post on top. The neighboring two posts were without any support, which were sustained only by Cheetah helicopters. And Cheetah said, we can't fly there. So throughout the period of mid-April to practically end of May, there was no supplies replenished, no casualties could be evacuated, and the people were running out of the rations and provisions. Now, this had to be initially reconnoitered. How do you carry out a reconnaissance of this nature? This feature is 80-degree incline, complete ice wall, 1,200 feet long, with the two crevasses in between. Now, when I took over the division, end of April, now the 4th of May, in fact, I was really effective. Went up myself and Brigadier Nugial, the brigade commander, kept on discussing with the CO how to find out what is there. Is it just an OP? Is there any hard post? What weapons are there? And secondly, how to scale this wall and get up. Mind you, I had no mountaineers per se, ordinary soldiers, trained as a pre-induction training only as a mountaineering skills in 1 month and committed. My God, but I think the results we got is unbelievable. This young officer with the 6 people, throughout the night he climbed up by fixing ropes, all the mountaineering equipment and skills, went up on top. He was told to just have a look, gauge, and come back. Spirit of the young man. After reaching the on top, he had reached at 22,000, mind you, from the base. He said, let me go and have a look at what is the Pakistanis about. 4 of them were shot down. But he had the guts to challenge and go ahead, close, to exceed the the limit of whatever he has been told, because that is the leadership. He thought he must find out something more than what is required. That is a young officer's level. I can tell you this post subsequently we knew that we can climb. There's a major of the 8 Jack alive, 30 people. Then again climbed up on this hill, went up on top. 2 nights they could not progress the attack because the weapons, the moisture used to freeze, bullets couldn't be fired. So 3rd morning, when I went there to the battalion quarter, I asked Varinder, can you attack during the daytime? He said, sir, very tough, we will be exposed. But whatever you say, we had no option. The post had to be removed at any cost. We had to take risks and say, okay, attack during the 11:30 hour. And this officer ensured that those 30 men, wave after wave, the last wave being led by Naib Subdar Bana Singh, who got a PVC later on, they eliminated the entire Pakistani post. There is a company commander level, and that group which was moving in phases, I think it is commendable for them. Now, I will talk about Musharraf's main attack. He was launching battalion at a time, in waves, of course, not the whole battalion at a time, because after all, the frontage is not leading, and moving on a glacier at the middle of the night is not something which can happen for a large force. We had only 2 posts of 10 to 14 people who could take on this particular assault. And this 2 posts, mind you, continue to inflict casualties, hang to the ground without any crippling. The post commander was shot up by a missile. His body was pulled out. Somebody else took over the position. And for 3 nights, they created havoc as far as the Pakistan army is concerned. That's the leadership even at the small detachment levels. There was nobody to, they had to ask, there were no permissions to be asked. Because when I used to go and brief the CO, the company commander, daytime, when there was no activity, what options they have and how they will continue to maintain the dominance. Afterwards, it was left only to the Nayak, Havaldar, JCO or that company commander. Beyond that, nobody could influence the battle. I can tell you, it is phenomenal. Brigade commander, he could influence up to the stage of motivating, selecting people, giving them tasks, pushing them. But there is no way you can say that he like to in between interfere or make modifications if required, not otherwise. Now the other leadership, I'll bring it out later.
Right. Thank you, sir. Puri, sir, the battle, Kargil war is replete with examples of junior leadership. They are in folklore today. And I'm sure there is so much that you'll have to tell us all about as far as junior leadership is concerned.
I think Kargil demonstrated the true worth of our junior leaders. The war was fought by the junior leaders, won by the junior leaders, by grit, glory, and the bloodshed which has been shed by them. Just to give you a rough idea, normally the casualty rate of an officer to a Jawan should be 1:35. That's because one officer is leading about 35 to 40 people. Here the casualty rate was 1:20. That's the high casualty rate for junior officers who are leading from the front. Every battle was, whichever attack we went in, it was the company commander or the young officer who led from the front. Along with him, they were very dedicated JCOs and NCOs. JCOs, despite their age, they were, most cases, very effective and they performed exceedingly well. Now, at the end of the day, we had 3 Paramveer Chakras. One officer got it, that's Vikram Batra. picture is there on his achievements, and two NCOs got it. One was Yogendra Singh from the Grenadiers for Tiger Hill, and the other was Sanjay Kumar from Jack Riff for .4875. And within Kargil, the fourth one went to Manoj Pandey, who was under 3 Infantry Division. So this is the type of courage and bravery which was demonstrated by these young officers. I'll give you an example of an NCO or a JCO. We went into an attack on a place called Three Pimple. This was by 2 Rajriff. And we were absolutely, it was becoming very difficult to capture a couple of bunkers which were remaining. Time was about 12 o'clock at night, since I was monitoring the operation sitting in the ops room. 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock at night, and we had been very successful with the Bofors. This JCO passed the message saying that साहब आप Bofor का fire ला दो इसके ऊपर. I asked him I asked the CRT to find out how far is he from the direct fire of the. He says he's just about 50 yards. So we were a bit worried. 50 yards to fire a Bofors directly onto the target at night. What would be the impact of this? But the JCO said, "आप सब fire करो, ये मैं अपनी जिम्मेवारी लेता हूँ." And we fired the Bofors, knocked out that bunker. This was the type of courage which was displayed. Then there was a young officer called Kangaroo Safe from again 2 Rajriff. Now, in one of the attacks, the last attack which he launched, he went to establish a block and then capture this feature. The enemy started throwing stones as they were climbing up. And the soil was so loose that he couldn't even grip the ground properly. He took out of his shoes. He took off his shoes and climbed, and of course he got killed when he reached the top. But his men subsequently captured that post. He got a Mahavir Chakra. So this was just an act to give you an idea as to how the junior officers performed. Commanding officers equally shared the privations with the men. They were there where the men, they led from the front, they led as commanding officers should be leading. And of course the brigade commanders, like very adequately brought out by General Kulkarni, they were the ones who were the motivating factor, providing the resources and then the plans and all that goes into the launching of the attack. But I think it's highly commendable. The achievements, what the young officers did was something remarkable, and we owe a debt of gratitude to them. This country must recognize the sacrifices which have been made by these young officers and the men. And I think it's commendable to have an army of this type.
Some instances of IPKF.
IPKF is replete with examples of excellent junior leadership. In fact, in 1987 was the first time the Indian Army faced IEDs, improvised explosive devices. The term had not, before that, it was not there in our vocabulary. And then the way, innovative ways were found by the JCOs and the NCOs to tackle this menace of IEDs. This is something which literally stood out. And since, because the IPKF gave this, almost 50% of the Indian Army was rotated through Sri Lanka, and when we pulled out in 1990 and we almost immediately, many of the units got deployed into J&K for tackling the terrorism problems, we found that the training or the on-the-job training that they acquired in Sri Lanka came in very handy over there. And there are many, many examples I can quote, but then I think we have some constraints of time.
Before I just go to the next question, just General Cardozo, sir, you had a question to ask?
I've got to go for my own session. I'm already late. But I was very glad to hear General Kulkarni saying there was no government interference in Siachen. I don't know about Kargil and I don't know about Sri Lanka, and I've got to leave, but I would like both of you to comment upon government interference in the operations. In my opinion, as far as Sri Lanka was concerned, it was a big khichdi. Everybody was interfering. Vice Chief, Army Chief, Southern Army Commander, RAW, everyone. And nobody knew who to listen to. So let's not let the government off the hook or whatever bad that happened. So I'm sure you'll have to talk about it. And as far as Kargil is concerned, why does the government continuously interfere in our military operations about which they know nothing about? We should have gone across the line of control, as General Puri has said. We would have achieved a lot. So let's not let the government off the hook, and let's talk about things which should have happened and didn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to, Colonel Nair, would you like to say something? Right, sir, please. We can keep it brief, sir, before we go on to the next one.
You see, in the IPKF operations, the chain of command was never very clear. Right from the very beginning till about almost 3/4 of the time of the operations, the chain of command was not clear. Headquarters Southern Command was overall responsible. There was a force commander who was in command of the troops who were inside the island. We as intelligence corps, we were told to report our information, whatever we were picking up, directly to Army headquarters. And we were not allowed to share that information locally with the local formation. I mean, that's what General Cardozo says, that it was a total khichdi. And we had a very powerful ambassador in Colombo, Mr. Dixit, who felt that he knew everything about the Tamils and he knew how to go about sorting them out. And unfortunately, our chief also happened to be General Sundarji, and they had a kind of they got along very well with each other. And between the two of them, they thought that they would run the policy, and they never took the GOC, like initially 2 months, it was General GOC of 54 Div. He was not, co-opted into the process of whatever discussions were taking place, how the operations were being planned. It was not there. That is why, it was a total khichdi right from the beginning till we almost got kicked out of. And that's why even today I am facing so much of resistance to get recognition for the braves who sacrificed their lives in those 32 months. Because everybody, all the seniors, they think it's a failed operation. It's a failed operation. It is not a failed operation. Militarily, we totally succeeded. We conducted the elections very successfully, and we established a Tamil government the way it was supposed to be. It was a political failure, it was a diplomatic failure.
Right. General Puri, sir, would you like to say something? Right, thank you. From this, we'll just move on to the next interesting question, and this is something about contemporary talk about jointness. In your book in IPKF, you talked about glowingly about air warriors and the Navy's contribution. And General Puri, sir, you've talked about the role of the Air Force in influencing the course of battle. And General Kulkarni has talked about, particularly about Air Marshal M.M. Singh and how the Air Force came to your rescue time and again. But having said all that, there is still the fact that the Kargil Review Committee recommendations on jointness are still languishing. So what do you have to say about that? Would you like to take it on, sir?
Yeah, I think, as far as the jointness is concerned, Kargil was a very limited war fought in a terrain which was totally different from a conventional war where, we've been taught to fight. So this was a very unconventional terrain. We were fighting at heights like General Kulkarni mentioned at 18,000, 19,000 feet. The Air Force, when the decision was taken to employ the Air Force, like I mentioned earlier, didn't have the right type of ordnance to effectively engage the target. It was only later on that they got the laser-guided bombs and they were able to be effective. So the Air Force, and secondly, they didn't have the night fighting visions. So when they engaged a target during the daytime, the target had adequate time to recover and be ready for a night attack which we were to launch that very day. So, but the impact of the Air Force as a morale booster was tremendous. See, to have the air flying over your area and engaging targets, even if they were not able to pinpointly destroy them. They of course later on did manage to destroy Montolalo and all these places. But at that point of time, initially they were not able to pinpointly destroy the target. But the impact on morale was tremendous.
Correct.
You know, the Navy of course did their bit by going into the Karachi harbour and blockading it and making sure that there was no mischief from that side. But I think jointness will continue, and I think we are on the right track as far as this is concerned. It has to be evolutionary sort of a thing, you know. United States has taken 25, 30 years to finally come to a stage of maturity. So we are just taking child steps at this stage, and as we graduate, I think this jointness will automatically become a part of our concepts.
We have now started talking about the theatre commands coming inevitable. Would you like to say something, sir, on this?
The situation in my sector was very different. Buck stopped at my level. I was the final authority to decide how to manage with the resources available. But when large helicopter fleet of the Air Force and aviation was diverted to support Sri Lanka, we had very few machines to fly and sustain the posts, evacuate casualties or convey commanders. Now this is a stage where whatever was the limited source, we had to exceed the limits laid down for the safety for number of hours the machine can fly before the next servicing can be done. That is 30 hours, 60 hours, 100 hours servicing, and the provision of the parts is catered for in such a way that 30 hours in a month. So only in a month, only that many spares could come. But if we complete 60 hours or 80 hours in a month, that much of spares were just not available. I was forced to go and seek meeting with the RRM in Delhi. I requested, I said, can you help? He just listened to me. I knew him because of certain reason. He said, sorry Ramesh, I can't help you. I said, thank you, sir. I came back. And on the glacier came the Air Marshal M.M. Singh, this AOC in C. I had been getting in touch with him as a MGGS Northern Command, and he was a Western Air Force commander. Frequent interactions, going to the Western Command headquarters, Air Command headquarters, and otherwise he used to come and visit. During the crisis, because of that, I would say it is a personal equation. It is not an organizational equation. He would come and visit me every 7 to 10 days. He will come up and land up, Ramesh, how are the things? Anything you want me to do? So on that particular time in the month of July, I asked him, sir, my machines are doing 60 to 80 hours a month. Pilots are flying, they're supposed to fly not more than 50 hours. They are now doing 100 hours. Can you help? I've tried myself with the RRM, but I failed. He said, forget everybody, nobody will help you. But I will tell you what to do. I give you authority to fly this helicopter single pilot. I was shocked. This is not something which is done. But he said, since you are shortage tonnage, one pilot will do it. I said, next. He said, the battalion headquarters on that Kumar at 15,000 feet, he says, you position aviation fuel and do hot refueling of the helicopters there rather than they going back to the base camp. I was aghast. And he says, you are the authority. I am going to tell AOC J&K and AOC Leh. Both of them later on rang up, sir, zara sambal ke iska istemal karna. I knew, should anything go wrong, nobody is going to take it that I had invoked my authority which he had given to me, or he would be forgiven. But that is by air cooperation. And when he said, if there is any crisis, I got fighters. You just send me a message, personal from Ramesh to MM. I will do it for you. Next came a situation, I wanted to have a photo reconnaissance of a southern glacier area because there was some fear that they will come to our Turtok, encircle our troops in Ladakh. So one day, chief of the army staff, he used to also come once in 8-10 days. I said, sir, I want an aerial reconnaissance of this area. Is it possible if you can get me? He went back. After 5 days, army commander came to visit me and he said, chief has spoken to the prime minister, but he has declined this permission for going across. 4 days later, the AOC in Sea came. I said, sir, I wanted an aerial recce, but army chief has spoken to the prime minister and he said, no. You want an aerial recce? Tomorrow it will happen. You want to go yourself in that aircraft? You can go. 9 o'clock, reach Avantipur. I said, sir, I don't want to go. What am I going to say? I won't be able to make out what is on the ground. I can send an aviation pilot along with him just for the heck of it. They came back. But I told him, sir, Prime Minister has declined permission. He says, what are you worried about? You want a photo reconnaissance? You will get it tomorrow. And by the evening, I got the results. And there was a major concentration Pakistanis had carried out, and they were going to attack. My God, I mean, if I would not have known this sort of a concentration, but it was only that I can say Army, Air Force cooperation or personal cooperation. But he stood to his ground, he risked everything, and I got the cooperation. So I have no issues on that.
Thank you, sir. We are short of time, already got an indication, so I'm going to ask some questions. If there are any questions from the public. Yes, sir.
Question to them, Kulkarni and Ramesh. My name is Kulkarni. I was there in Siachen in 84. As part of 3 days, I was Sparrow Siachen. Even then I had this query. In 1971, NJ9842 was the point, on paper. Why was India sleeping? Since 71 till Kulkarni went there. And Kulkarni only, we reacted because of Pakistani mountaineers. Why did India not do something? And that too in 84, when all the, because I was there laying cable even before it became, all the people who came in, AD people, the Grad P guys, the SAMs, the poor chaps were saying, अब जाओ, मथुरा से उधमपुर जाओ, उधमपुर से श्रीनगर जाओ, श्रीनगर से आप पैदल चले जाओ. I mean, the planning for the 84 beginning could have been better. But my question, that's fine, is why did India not attend to NJ9842 and northwards versus KK Pass, both at the political level, at the MO level, at 3 level?
Thank you. So would any of you like to take it up?
If you are aware that NJ9842 was the area was physically demarcated on the map and on the ground. There onwards, we had little cartographic detailed maps, or nobody had ever ventured into these areas. The army patrols went only in 78 and 81, these are the two. But before that, this area not being accessible, only mountaineers had been going there as per record. Army headquarters said that this area should be forbidden for even mountaineers. So after that, no mountaineering expedition went there till 78. So we had no idea what is happening there. Only we came to know through the mountaineering channel that Pakistan has been sponsoring foreign mountaineering expeditions with a Pakistani officer acting as a liaison officer. And that is how we said this is the area is forbidden. So we had closed the eyes, closed the minds, and had no doubt what wanting to talk. This is a very unfortunate part, politically and militarily. Yeah, that is a failure on that.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from anybody? Any other questions?
Could I make a point which I want to say about the leadership which we talked about? We talked about junior leadership.
Sir,
I'll just
we just got, they've already given me a big hint that we should close down. So I'll just, yeah, any question? Yeah. Right, okay. So let me just quickly sum this up with a big thank you to the panelists. May I request you all, a lot of questions are there, a lot of interesting lessons have come out from all these 3 books. May I urge you to read them, and I'm sure you can approach the authors for any queries at another time. Thank you, sirs. Thank you very much for being on the panel. Thank you very much for coming all the way, particularly you come all the way from Pune. It's been a delightful experience for me personally to moderate this amongst you new luminaries. Thank you very much, and thank you, USI, for this session.